Yeah, come on. All right, hey everybody, I'm David BUTTREY. I'm an adjunct professor here, and this is two members of Earphunk, which is a local New Orleans band, and their manager, Alex BOWEN. We'll go through a quick bio that they've written up, and then from there we've got a list of questions from some of the students. So we'll go through those questions, and from there I'll probably open up the discussion as far as just talking day-to-day things that you guys do. And then towards the end we can have an open Q&A if any of you have any questions for sort of an upcoming band that tours pretty often. Okay, so Earphunk, hailing from the Crescent City, has emerged as one of the premier jam acts in the Southeast. The Prague Funk Quintet has steadily been building a rabid fan base across the United States with their brand of high-energy funk, inspiration, improvisation, and dynamic stage production. Earphunk has performed in over 140 cities over the past year, nice, and including performances at Wakarusa, Bear Creek, and sharing the stage with bands like Lettuce, George Clinton, Grey Boy All-Stars, Galactic, Big Gigantic, Juno What, Particle, Two Bob Crew, Ivan Neville's Dumpsta Funk, Zugma, and Perpetual Groove. So that's great. When I was here at school, and some of the members of Earphunk also, like those are some of the bands that we grew up listening to, so it's definitely exciting to see these guys be playing with them. But I guess if you guys want to take a moment to introduce yourselves.
This is going to Michael. I play drums. And
I'm Christian. I play keyboards. Michael and I are both graduates of this program as well, if that wasn't clear.
I'm Alex.
It's fun to be back.
I'm Alex BOWEN, manage Earphunk. Also work for Hookah Entertainment as a talent buyer.
And so are all three of you guys from New Orleans?
yeah, well, Christian and I are. He's from Lafayette.
Lafayette, Louisiana.
Okay. And what brought you to New Orleans?
I mean, I've always been a fan of the city. You know, younger, coming here to see music all the time, and pretty much work landed me here twice in the past 4 years. So pretty happy camper that I made it back here.
When did you meet any of the members of the band?
I met Michael when I originally moved from Austin, Texas, back to Baton Rouge. I opened up a bar/venue and was booking some jam fun kind of shows, and randomly met Michael and kind of hit the ground running from there, and things just kind of took off and started to spiral up.
Was that Earphunk at the time?
Yeah, that was, I believe y'all were a band for what, like a year?
We were together for 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years
working
probably.
with you.
And y'all were based out of New Orleans?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
At the time, were you guys booking your own shows?
yeah, I was actually doing all the booking and all the management and stuff, and got to the point where I was trying to focus more on the music and not so much of the business side. So that's when we brought Alex in, and it's been nothing but beneficial. Everything's been great so far working with him, and it definitely kind of took us to the next level, having somebody who had been working around the music scene on the business end for a few years, and opened up the doors to a lot of opportunities that have helped us, you know, definitely get a lot more shows and a lot more really, really good gigs, you know, rather than just playing random bars on random nights. There was more of a plan behind the whole thing, and so
Purpose.
yeah, purpose.
Yeah, I know a lot of the students are in bands right now that are playing locally, maybe doing like 8-hour runs from the city and coming back, but looking to expand, sort of, you know, outside of them, booking their own shows, or, you know, finding the right promoter or partner for their act. Is there any one team member you would suggest that they should bring on first? This might be a question more directed towards Alex.
I mean, you know, I would say when you're at that stage, whether it be a booking agent or a manager, it's just, you know, ultimately someone, you know, that could help you. I mean, kind of the model, or I guess the model that we started off with is, okay, we're doing really good in New Orleans and Baton Rouge. Let's choose 3 other cities and start to build from there, and really focus on building those 3. And, you know, since then it's just kind of steadily expanded. I mean, it's definitely had its ups and downs if you figure out who's a good promoter, who's not a good promoter, who does legit business, who does shady business. So there was definitely some trial and error involved, but you know, in the end, it definitely has worked out.
And after you first met Michael, did you book that show that they were playing?
I actually went to go check him out at a show Michael had booked at Chelsea's. One of my buddies who actually was the lighting designer at the original venue that I owned in Baton Rouge, he's like, oh, you got to check out this band Earphunk. And I was originally like, oh, Earphunk, what kind of name is that? Not really giving it the time of the day. And then I actually went and checked him out and was, you know, blown away and was like, wow, this definitely has some potential. Kind of talked to Michael when, you know, we both have the same vision and just kind of, you know, hit the ground running.
And so Christian, you had just joined the band at that point?
I'd been around for at least a good year and a half.
I think we were together for about a year before we brought him on board.
Yeah. And it kind of all came together within that, I guess within that year we met Alex.
And so Alex, with your kind of first role with the band as you came on, was it primarily booking shows?
Yeah, it was primarily booking shows and, you know, just trying to get them with the right promoters, like I said, in a couple different cities, and really just trying to start a natural build instead of just trying to force something and say, hey, let's go drive 16 hours to make $100. It's like, all right, let's look regionally, you know, what can we focus on that actually might have potential for growth, and just, you know, try it out. And we got, you know, relatively lucky and it started to work, you know. The smaller shows started to just build and build to where it's like, okay, we're in, you know, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, we're doing 100 people, something's working.
Yeah, were there certain markets where you knew you were going to go there that specific time of year, each year?
I mean, with like the SEC college markets, you know, always around football season is good, especially in the Southeast with how many colleges there are. Trying to, you know, definitely be wary of, okay, there's an away game this weekend, a lot of students might be leaving. Definitely things like that, just because, you know, SEC football is definitely like a big deal in the South, and, you know, the NFL stuff as well, as far as like, obviously you don't want to go do a show in Atlanta when they're playing down here, something like that.
When you guys are playing some of these markets, are you looking to play sort of after parties for larger events?
I mean, definitely.
We have, yeah. We definitely have. It's a good way to get on a poster with some big names, you know, even if it's a smaller room, and regardless of how well it does, it still helps get your name in front of some eyes, you know.
And I guess with your current position with the band, it's changed over time, over the past like 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
If you want to kind of go about, I guess, you know, discussing what you want as far as those changes.
I mean, originally I started out just booking their shows. I mean, we built it to a point where the guys were doing pretty significant business and had a couple different agencies involved. So we kind of looked at the track records and whatnot and found one that we wanted to give a try, and brought them on. I switched over to a management role, but still being heavily involved in the booking. Just because they actually were based out of North Carolina, so they weren't actually, you know, in the Southeast per se. We stayed with them for what, nine months? Maybe?
Just short of a year, yeah.
Yeah, just short of a year, and then kind of ran into some hiccups where we weren't necessarily on the same page with them, and switched over to another agency that's been great. Haven't had any problems or anything. They've kind of shared the same vision with us, so that's been pretty ideal as far.
And I think one thing a lot of the students might want to know, sort of, how often are you speaking with the agent for the group?
I mean, we talk every day. Every day. I mean, he's on vacation this week, and I talked to him 3 times today. It doesn't really end.
And are you typically discussing shows that are already booked, or sort of planning for the next season?
I mean, you know, it's on a day-to-day basis. Today we were talking about the Florida run that the guys have this weekend, and then also talking about some stuff that we have in January and February. So I mean, typically, you know, we try to always stay at least 3 to 4 months in advance as far as looking at stuff. I mean, we have shows booked as far out as June right now. So it's always just trying to stay ahead of the curve and, you know, get the dates that you want ideally.
For certain cities, do you have goals of you want to headline in that city and bring on an opener, or you want to get onto the larger bill as an opener?
I mean, ideally, you know, you always want to get in front of the biggest crowd. So anytime you can get on supportive, okay, we know there's going to be 1,000 people, and, you know, this band has similar fans that we think would like, you know, Earphunk. We definitely look to get on those kind of situations as often as possible. But you know, with when the guys are being developed and whatnot and developing, it's always a good idea to have local support, just to, you know, a band that can, you think somewhat matches your sound, that can help get heads in the building. That's always positive, especially with them actually being on the ground, and, you know, you're 3 hours away and can't necessarily promote your own show other than the tools you have on the internet.
With shows that you guys are headlining, are there any other additional criteria that you look at when bringing on a band to potentially open?
I mean, it's just kind of a case-by-case basis. I mean, I know you guys had met some like mutual friends in like New York that ended up giving the guys another show. The guy actually ended up owning a venue, which we had no idea, and they did a show together at Brooklyn Bowl, and he's like, hey, you guys should come to my spot. So, I mean, you know, it's just kind of cool. You can't really judge a book by its cover on every occasion, I'd say, and always have an open mind.
What is the furthest that you guys have toured from New Orleans this far?
We've been all the way up to Seattle. We've done both the East and West Coast, all the way from, you know, on the East Coast, we've been down to Key West, Miami, all the way up to Burlington, Vermont. Chicago and Seattle. I think Seattle's just about as far north as you can get, or Bellingham.
Bellingham is practically Canada.
Canadian border. But yeah, we've done a lot of traveling.
We've done some 40-hour drives. Well, only one of those.
That was
a lot of 20s.
Yeah, there was no more 40-hour drives after the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Learn the hard way.
I understood that.
Usually, how long is your run if you're going out to Seattle or something like that?
Probably 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks.
We've done 4, I think. But yeah, realistically, to make it worth your while, you need to be out there. Just getting out there and getting back is going to be over a week, you know.
And then as far as the East Coast versus the West Coast, is there one that you typically prefer to play?
I like the East Coast just because the drives are short.
The drives are way shorter.
Especially in the Northeast, all the big cities are within 2 to 3 hours of each other.
Yeah, you can go DC to Baltimore to Philly to basically New York, and they're all an hour and a half apart.
Yeah, but on the West Coast, everything was like at least 6 hours, 6 to 8 hour drives.
Are there any tips for sort of any groups that are potentially playing here that are looking to go out on maybe like a 2-week run or a 3-week run for the first time?
I'd pack for all seasons because you never know what you're going to run into. We've been in the snow one day, in a snowstorm, and then the next day we're on the beach. So I think we've made that mistake a few times going out on the road. It's like, oh, it's going to be warm. You don't look at the weather, and it's
just because it's warm here doesn't mean
it's always hot here.
Warm everywhere.
You just have to assume that.
Have you guys ever run into any issues with weather sort of in that Colorado tour
they have a great
route that's always there?
Yeah, we left, I think we were in Durango, and the guy comes up after the show, the promoter, and he's like, yo, you know, there's a lot of snow coming in. I'm gonna show you how to get to the show the next day, because the one pass that everyone would normally take, he's like, I guarantee it's gonna be closed. So there was 2 other options. He's like, all right, this way doesn't have a railing on the side of the mountain. I don't know if you want to take that way. Take this way, it'll be open. And so woke up, I think, 2 or 3 hours earlier than we were expecting to leave to kind of give us some extra time. And we got all the way up to the pass, I think about 3 or 4 hours. And it was only 45 miles from the city we were playing, the furthest point we got to. And they closed that pass too for the day. So we're on the phone.
We had to backtrack.
Yeah. So, and there was no other way. We would have had to go 3 hours south to get to the closest roadway where we could even.
I think we had to go back into New Mexico.
Yeah, we went down to New Mexico and out of the mountain range, and we thought we were all good. It was. We were already going to be late for the show, so Alex started talking to the promoter. He's like, all right, you know, they're going to get there. As of right now, they're going to roll up right when they're expected to start their first set. So, you know, we're probably going to have to push it back, maybe cancel the first set. So they were on the phone with them all day. Meanwhile, we don't have any service.
We're chaining up our tires on the side.
Yeah, we didn't even know when to chain up our tires. That was our
cliff.
first time driving in the snow. Like, I guess we need chains for the tires. And we're just driving, like, looking at other cars. We're like, do they have their chains on? Do they have their chains on? It's definitely a learning curve, but we got caught in one of the worst snowstorms, and we drove for about 16 hours that day.
Yeah.
And then made it to the gig, and then the guy didn't want to pay us after we set up and everything. But it was definitely...
Luckily, we haven't had many of those situations.
Yeah, that was only once. And we've run into a couple van issues on the road. Transmission went out on the West Coast.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
You think of it, but the show must go on. You make it work.
Yeah.
You rent a Suburban and make it to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of from, I guess, BOWEN's hat in that situation, are there certain things that you're looking to touch base with the promoter on, and when you know there's a chance that the band might make it in time? And it's
Oh
due to
yeah, I
other
mean, we
conditions?
always want to, be upfront and honest, and make sure everyone's on the same page so there's no surprises. That was a very unique situation. I never dealt with a buyer quite like that before. So, I mean, I'm on the phone with the agent, yelling at the agent, and he's yelling at the promoter, and the agent's in North Carolina, I'm in Louisiana, the buyer's in Colorado. So I mean, it's just this chain. Yeah. And that was definitely a learning experience from my end where, even if you have a signed contract, at the end of the day, the guy's shicey, the guy's shicey.
Mm. And yeah, how many situations have you sort of fallen into where you, kind of after the fact, it became a learning experience?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a regular occurrence, but I mean, it definitely happens. I mean, even at this stage, you have little hiccups where someone has a good history of doing good business, but at the end of the day, they don't necessarily know the ins and outs of like being an everyday buyer, if you will. So if something comes up and they're just like scratching their head and you're like, no, this is not how this is supposed to be. This is not how this works. Like, well, this is what I do. And like, this is not what the industry does. So, I mean, even as you get, I guess, higher up the chain, if you will, those things still do happen.
And when you were first getting the talent buying, was it sort of you reaching out to friends that were in bands that were performing, or you sort of approached a venue?
I mean, honestly, pretty much I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, and our buddy that we went to high school with opened up a bar in Baton Rouge. And at the time, it was right before, I guess, EDM exploded, if you will, and we're like, wow, we should bring this to Louisiana. No one knows about this. So we booked an act called Too Fresh. We were so naive, we packed up a trailer with all our sound equipment from Austin, Texas, rented lights from there, drove it down to Baton Rouge, which is obviously, looking back, the expenses are just outrageous, and we just gave up all of our profits. But drove it down to Baton Rouge, through the show, had like 400 kids there, and we're like, wow, we can actually make money doing this. This is cool. And then, went back to Austin, I guess, kept planning, and then ended up actually booking like Big Gigantic for our second show ever. And obviously, they're kind of blown up now. So it's, kind of full circle.
Very nice. But, and as far as your, I guess, current touring, is there anyone besides the band that will travel with the band on some of these runs, like the 2-week to 3-week runs?
I mean, they had a tour manager. He actually just got picked up with Grammatic full time and does some Let It stuff. So, I mean, as of right now, Christian's assumed that role. We're kind of, the guys just invested in a light rig, so we're, kind of trying out lighting designers to bring out on the road, trying to make the show bigger and step it up.
And at what point do you decide you want to bring in outside production for some of your shows?
I mean, pretty much once you get to a point where you can afford it, and you're doing everything you can without actually bringing in the production, where it comes to the point where you just kind of have to. It's like, obviously our music is on point. What can we do to take the show to the next level? I mean, most venues have some lights, but anything you can do to set your bar higher than the person who played the night before you is always a positive thing when you're developing.
Have you guys done any sort of package tours where you'll tour with one or two other bands from New Orleans?
We've met up with some acts and some bands and crossed paths, but we've never like left the road at the same time, done all the gigs and come back. We've never had it coordinated in that way. But there's been a handful of times we've crossed paths with some different bands out there.
Yeah, let's date to like the Revivalists in Colorado.
Yeah, well, in California, I met up with Grand VA in Colorado. We're meeting up with Dumpster Funk in Miami and Boca Raton this weekend.
As far as the past few years, there's been a rise in kind of the volume and frequency of festivals as the summer touring circuit. How does that affect your role as far as, like radio clauses and booking, 3 to 6 week tours along with festivals that may try to box out certain groups from touring in those regions? I
mean, ideally when trying to, get the guys on festivals, you always want to look at the bigger ones. The more people they can be in front of is always the greater goal. So I mean, we've tried to plan ahead. I mean, right now we have a festival confirmed in May, another one confirmed in June. Just got some offers today for one in March. So I mean, we try and plan on the festivals as far ahead as possible and use those as the anchors. Like, okay, we know we're going to be in, point A right here. Let's plan a tour around this. How are we going to get from point A in the middle of June to, point C in August? Like, we can do this in July. So it's just kind of you pick and choose like, you know, which one's going to be your anchor, and then kind of roll with it from a routing perspective from there.
One of the questions that was on our sheet from the students was the importance of a residency. Are there certain reasons why you guys have avoided taking any offers doing a residency around town?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's market saturation, and I don't know. I feel like it takes away from the specialness of the show, if you will. You know, there's some bands that come through once a year, and we'll pack a house, and that's kind of where we're coming from. You know, instead of having, you know, 4 decent shows in a month, have
On a weeknight.
one
probably
every other month,
sometime.
you know, something like that.
What were some of your favorite shows from this past summer that you guys performed in?
Wakarusa.
Wakarusa was definitely a lot of fun, and probably one of our biggest crowds. We've done a few shows with something we call Daft Punk, where we do all instrumental covers of all the Daft Punk songs, and we were featured for one of the late night sets on the Friday night at Wakarusa this year, and I think it was about 4,500 to 5,000 people. We just announced a run today. We're doing 2 shows in Texas, 2 of those shows in Texas and 2 in Colorado, in Denver and Boulder during the holidays. So that adds like a different aspect to our music, because we get to set up more gear on stage. You know, we kind of get to dive into the electronic world a little bit, but you know, we're not playing with any like loops or anything. It's all live and on the spot. But that kind of gives us, I guess, you know, kids go to
more reach.
Yeah, more reach to the electronic side of the music festival scene, and as opposed to just playing, you know, like jam funk, prog funk style that we play. So it opens more doors and brings in a wider audience. So.
And the good thing is too, we're still performing one set of our original music. So we give maybe some people who wouldn't necessarily come to see us just for our original music the opportunity to see us perform original music, and still get to see what they really came for as well. And which, you know what I was saying with the reach, it kind of helps, you know, cross some genres.
Was that something that was pre-orchestrated, or you're big fans of the band, or a little of both? You
I
kinda
think
all sat
it
down?
was
Actually his idea. He called us one night. We were in Colorado out on the road, and he just said Daft Punk, and I started laughing. I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Y'all should do all instrumental covers of Daft Punk music, all live. You know, it's not something that anyone else is really doing." And we kind of laughed about it and shrugged it off. We're like, "Yeah, you know, that'd be cool. Probably will never happen." And then I guess a few weeks later,
for a gig, and you're like, "Let's do it."
Yeah,
Yeah,
Baton Rouge, Spanish Moon.
he's like, "I want to make it happen," and he made it happen, and it was a huge success. And we actually did 2 shows in New Orleans since then. So we don't try to do it too often. It's like we don't want to have we don't want people to come to a show or every show and just expect us. They're like, "Oh, this is some Daft Punk cover band or something."
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to. You make it special, and I think we've done 4 shows
3 or 4 times
in the last 3 years. And it kind of leaves people wanting more. You know, people are always hitting us up, "When's your next Daft Punk show?" Really enjoyed it, and you know, it's cool that we get to do it again.
It's definitely a thin line. You don't want to overdo it.
Yeah, we don't want to take away from our original music.
A lot of talks about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of the Flaming Lips, you know, covering an entire album for performance, and then them getting booked just for that or for both sets.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's like meetings they have repeatedly as far as whether they're going to agree to do it or not.
Yeah, you always have your
If it's
agent pushing
appropriate.
you for the yes, because they're like, "Well, I can get my commission." You're like, "No, this isn't what anyone wants to do."
Yeah,
So yeah, it's always always a talk that we constantly
balancing
have.
act.
As far as the Southeast, how often do you guys try to hit a particular market a year, or how many times?
I mean, honestly, it just depends. I mean, like with New Orleans being home, we generally try to space everything out at least 6 to 8 weeks. You know, kind of like they said, why do a show once a month when we can have, you know, a show every 6 to 8 weeks and have the same turnout instead of spreading it out. But I mean, you know, every market is different. It just depends. It's like, you know, Austin, Texas has been a really, really strong market for them. the first play sold out. Second play went into a room twice as big. Went at 85% sold. Third time went in, sold it out. So that's when we've kind of been, spacing apart. It's like the business is already there. People are into it and know about it. Versus somewhere where like Boca Raton, where we've had good numbers, but it's a steady trickle versus like, wow, how does this many people know about us?
Right.
I'd say Portland was another one. I think y'all did like 180 paid the first time they were ever up there, and it's like, okay, how do 180 people in Portland, Oregon know about this band from New Orleans who've never been to the West Coast before? So, that's kind of the power of the internet.
Well, there's some built-in crowds and a lot of rooms too, and it's really cool to find those and take note, And sometimes you get lucky, with that, Yeah. But it's great because they were there, they loved it, and they would totally come back.
Over the years, have you guys developed certain favorite bands in different markets that you like to play with, like in a particular city?
We have a good time. We go out with Dumpster Funk and Galactic, and we just did a 6-night run with Lettuce, 5-night run with them. In the Southeast, we played in like the Georgia Theater and
Nashville.
We did
Atlanta.
Yeah, it was a good time. Two of the shows were Humphreys McGee and Sound Tribe tour after parties. So, it's definitely fun playing with those guys because they're phenomenal musicians, but we also get to play in front of a much bigger crowd than we normally would in those markets. So that was good. Who else?
As far as regionally, there's not too many bands that, like, hey, we're in Auburn, Alabama, let's continue to play with this band. It's always, you don't want to bring the same package out, necessarily every time, because then you're diluting the package in itself. So we try and keep it, diverse for the most part, unless they're, like Michael was saying, bigger bands with, bigger draws where we can, build off their fan base as well.
For this next tour, how long are you guys going on the road for?
We're leaving this Wednesday. We're just doing 4 dates in Florida and finishing off in Macon, Georgia Sunday with Galactic.
Okay.
And then we come back and pretty much we're doing a couple weekends, but nothing too extensive
Yeah, we're about to get in the
until we go to
studio.
Colorado, and that's really just going to be like a week.
Yeah, we're just kind of getting ready to go in the studio in mid-December, so we're starting to work on some of the new songs. Just got a bunch of stuff in the works. So
Try to
trying
finish all the
focus on
material
that.
out.
It's pretty hard to do when you're on the road a ton. It's finding the time to be able to write music and practice the way you want to, because most of the time that you're free, you're either in the van traveling or you're sleeping at the hotel. So we're still trying to feel that out. Some places will rent rehearsal rooms in different cities and try to get an hour or two in, on the way to a show somewhere.
Or if your sound engineer is patient, you can do a long sound check rehearsal.
Yeah, just kind of depends. But yeah, I think we're getting in the studio mid-December for a week or two. We'll probably put out a new album in April sometime. So pretty excited about
that'll
that.
be for free download as well.
Yeah, all of our music's
music is.
available on our website at earphunk.com for free download. We have 3 albums and then a Live at Tipitina's album as well. And everything's on Spotify, YouTube, everything.
You can also post it on iTunes if you'd like.
And iTunes, if you want to purchase it.
Do you have a location set for the CD release? Or is that something you guys will discuss down the line?
I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it.
Right now,
We have ideas.
Definitely have some ideas. Right now we're finalizing like January through March, and then using the anchors for the festivals this summer to figure out where we're going to go.
Have you guys ever packaged with a brand on a particular tour? Or is that something you guys would be open to in the future?
When you say brand, you mean
Like tour
some kind of
sponsorship.
sponsorship.
We haven't done it. I would certainly be open to it depending on the brand.
Yeah, we've talked about it. We've had a couple different brands that could have potentially worked and would have been free money, but it hasn't really aligned with what we wanted to do and necessarily brand ourselves as. But hopefully sooner than later we get the right one.
Is that something that you guys will be actively pursuing in the future, or something you just kind of wait until you get the calls and see what's most appropriate?
I mean, we pursued a couple, and I mean, you know, as far as like gear, we've got some gear sponsorships and whatnot, some endorsements that have come through, so that's been really cool. But I mean, it's something we've looked at, but you know, it's not something that I spend all day, every day trying to figure out. Okay, we got to get this free money for this tour sponsorship. We have to do this. I mean, yeah, it would be great and it would absolve some expenses, but at the end of the day, if it's not a brand that we're aligning with, we're not just going to pimp ourselves out, if you will.
For you guys, as far as transportation these days, is it like a van and a trailer?
Van trailer.
Yeah, 15-passenger van.
Which was broken into in Chicago.
Last week.
Yeah, wow. Well, so yeah, I guess you guys want to go through that a little bit? I know that's something that's happened to several bands here.
It's something we thought we'd never run into.
Yeah, exactly.
And it happened in downtown Chicago. We went to this late-night blues club to go see some of these really old, famous blues musicians that have just been playing for 50, 60-plus years around the city. And we were parked on a well-lit street, actually in front of a Guitar Center. I don't know if you think
Yeah,
about
right
it.
down the street, yeah.
A block away, a well-lit street, a lot of foot traffic. And we came back and the door was unlocked, and we thought at first that it was, you know, negligence. All our stuff got taken that way, but somebody actually pulled the keyhole out of the door. And
Yeah, the lock was removed from the door handle, so
a couple
it was
laptops,
actually busted
all of
into.
our backpacks with like laptops, iPads,
Guitar, some gig money.
Yeah.
They knew what
So
they were
that-
doing.
Wow.
I guess out of all the places we've been to, we stayed at a bunch of sketchy hotels in different
Motels.
cities, motels, and I was kind of shocked that it would happen on a street like that.
Yeah, busy, well-lit street.
But we were fortunate enough, our fans actually raised all the money back to cover all the gear. We did like a digital tip jar type thing, and raised all the money in less than a week. It was just amazing that our fans were that nice and wanted to support us like that. But fortunately, they didn't get into the trailer. We have these big stainless steel box locks that you would have to weld off of there. You know, we've seen people put the little regular key locks on there, and people just walk up and empty out the whole trailer. So it's something that is always in the back of our mind, more so now. But you know, it sucks, but you kind of have to bounce back from that. It's almost like we've been fortunate enough not to have any severe traveling issues away from a blown transmission and getting caught in some bad weather a few times. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like a rite of passage, I guess, to touring.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to happen every band.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, it's
gotta get
happened.
your gear
Every
stolen.
band has been on the road. I guess we're just fortunate enough that we didn't have to cancel any gigs or
Yeah,
anything.
we still had pretty much all of our instruments, so we could still play.
Yeah. So it's always something. You never know what you're going to run into being on the road, and you kind of got to be ready for anything at any moment. So
once you realized the gear, some of your gear was stolen,
yeah.
was Alex, was it your idea as far as the fundraising campaign?
It was something that me and Paul talked about.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I got the call at like 6 a.m. I had currency in Baton Rouge that night, so I went to bed at like 3 a.m. after the show and got woken up at like 6 with the call. And you know, originally when they thought it was negligence, I'm just like, man, I can stomach someone else breaking into it, but if like someone left it unlocked, like, man, come on. And then you know, once we figured it out the next day, that was definitely relieving. But yeah.
And kind of on the topic of fundraising, have you guys ever considered the option of like a Kickstarter or anything?
We've done a
like that?
Kickstarter.
We did one.
We funded one of our
We funded an
albums,
an EP.
an EP with a Kickstarter. It was cool. We'd never done anything like that. I think they've changed a couple things about it.
Yeah, they actually take like a bigger percent out of Kickstarter. Digital tip jar takes a very minute percent in comparison. So we went that route for raising the funds, just to not give up money. The other thing about Kickstarter is you don't receive any of the funds you raise unless you meet your goal.
The digital tip jar is instantly through PayPal, and you can transfer the money. The money's in your account within 24 hours. So that was more along the lines of getting the gear replaced immediately and not having to wait 30 days for the Kickstarter money to go through or whatever.
For the next album, are you guys considering running a Kickstarter campaign?
No,
probably not.
No.
no.
Fuck, we just used the freebie card with the stolen gear.
And yet, if there's anyone in bands or anyone that's looking to book shows locally, these are great guys as far as questions. Just a few years ago, they were in these same seats. And as you can see, these guys are touring nationally. Alex is working on national scale festivals. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to line up at any point and ask them, but I'll keep running the interview. As far as booking some of the shows, are you always looking for wire payments, cash payments, as far as your protocol for the type of payment and method of payment? Do you have a
I mean, we
preferred-
always give 50% deposits to the agency, just to ensure that, we're not walking into a situation where the guys are just going to get screwed. In most cases, it's received. Sometimes it's not. And it's just, every venue operates differently. Some promoters have a relationship long enough with an agent where it's like, I've been booking shows with you for 10 years. Let's be real here. So, I mean, just a case-by-case basis. And then some nights you obviously want cash so that everyone can have per diems. But, for the most part, we like to have either certified checks or cash, usually checks.
And when you guys are on the road, is there one band member that typically handles settlement at the end of each night, or something that's kind of determined night by night?
Yeah, it's kind of whoever's of clear mind at the time.
As far as online presence and social media outlets and things of that nature, is that something where everyone kind of contributes, or there's one person that kind of runs everything online for you guys?
Michael's been doing a lot of it, but every now and then we'll snap a cool picture or have an idea for something, some kind of question, some kind of engaging post or something.
Yeah, we try to
We'll
stay like
put it out there.
interactive on Facebook now, because they have all this filtering that goes in where if people aren't interacting with your post, less and less people see it. And we've you were getting on my case about that for a while. I was like, no, it doesn't matter, whatever. It's like, no, I'm going to show you. And it can tell you how many people see the post. And I think you made a point to make it, post something like a picture or something of something you run into during that day, and maybe ask a question or something to get people to comment and like stuff like that and share the post. And I think the post, we had kind of a little contest to see who could get in front of the most people, or to make a post to see how many people, or who could get the most views on the post. And I think mine got like 1,000 people, and yours got to like 10,000 or 12,000 people. Just
Was that the
asking
meme?
a question.
Yeah, that was the meme.
It's
Figures.
yeah. So we try to stay as interactive as possible with the post, because that reaches the biggest audience.
And I mean, they've shifted the algorithm like so much, and it's such an ever-changing process that it's not just about pushing out information anymore. It's how many people are going to like this, how many people are going to share it, because I mean, ultimately, that's what determines how many people actually see it, versus just every time you make a post like, oh, let's put money behind it. It's a lot more to it than just pushing out steady. We're playing here, we're playing here, we're playing here. It's more about engaging with the fan base and almost creating a community, instead of just feeding them information where they don't really want to hear it.
Do you guys ever run contests through online platforms?
All the time.
Yeah, we do merch giveaways,
Ticket giveaways.
I want to do a ticket scavenger hunt. Like, I think they did that here. Someone hid some tickets to a show in one of the books in the Loyola library.
That's cool.
I think it was like a Galactic show or something. They're like, oh, you got to go find it. Here's the clues.
I
And
think Nigel actually did that for the Halloween show in 2011.
yeah, and people went and found it in the library in some random book. So I think it's cool to stay creative and say, how can I do a giveaway, but something that no one else is really doing, something that people are going to jump on and want to participate in. But we try to do a bunch of stuff, poster giveaways, whatever.
Do you guys encourage people to film or record your shows? Or
Yeah, we have an
something
open
to
taping
avoid?
policy.
Yeah.
We have an open taping policy.
Okay.
So, for the taper world out there, community, it started, I guess, with the Dead was the biggest one.
In
And
my
we definitely
opinion,
want to encourage that.
It's nothing but beneficial. There's people who are like, oh, you can't, I've seen big bands walk up to a taper and just rip their gear down. They're like, oh, you know, you can't tape here. And it's, to me, it's nothing but beneficial because it's just another outlet for your music, especially your live shows. There's a whole scene of people who just want the live shows. They like your studio stuff, but just people who want to hear a show from a specific night. And we actually have a bunch of shows on archive.org that have popped up from just random tapers in different cities.
Yeah, and like the diehard fans really enjoy it. They're like, oh my God, did you hear that drove from Asheville? It was such an epic drove. You know, they just nerd out on it. So, I mean, it's cool to, you know, give them as much material as possible.
Yeah, so it's just another way to get it out there.
As far as merch on the road, is that something that you guys bring to every single show?
Yeah.
Now we do, yeah.
Yeah, we
very
just
lax
read
about it at first, but
yeah. We kind of, it helps out tremendously when you can make just as much money on merch as you actually did the gig, if not more. You know, it's like,
and that's not every night. But
that's not every night.
If you get one of those a tour, that's like an extra gig you played.
You know, I think we average about at least $150 in merch, especially for the last few shows a night. You know, and having an extra $150 to $300 in your pocket every night. You know,
and T-shirts, it's advertising. It's
walking it's covering expenses to where you're profiting more at the end of the night or at the end of the tour. But we've tried to. At first, we had like one T-shirt and our first album, and people would walk up to the table, and it was like, all right, I don't want that. You only have one shirt. So we've tried to go with the mindset of give people more options. We have like 4 or 5 different shirts and different records, and they come up, and now we've noticed that with people they sit there and they're like, oh, well, they have all this stuff. What am I going to buy? It's a different mindset. You know, they either come up and say yes or no, or they come up and they're like, what am I going to get? There's 4 shirts. I want one of them, or something. And we've been successful, you know, having more of different options to give to people. Yeah.
As far as the in-venue merch sales, is that something you have the venue provide as far as personnel to run the merch stand, or something that you guys leave?
We've been bringing a merch guy on the road with us.
Mm-hmm.
We've been bringing a merch guy on the road with us the last month and a half, and it's been great. It's hard when you're trying to sell your own merch during a set break, or you know, because there's so many people that just walk up during the show and they want to buy it right then and there during the show or something. And we found that having guys sell merch, we sell almost 5 times as much as just doing it ourselves. Yeah, it's something we've been trying to focus on in the last 2 or 3 months, is really getting the merch table off the ground and getting it to where it's turning good profit at the end of the night, which has been great so far.
So on the road, it's the band plus the merch personnel.
Merch guy, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we did have a tour manager who was doing our front of house sound as well. But like Alex said, he got a different gig. So right now it's you know, merchandise, trying to get a little more revenue.
When is your next New Orleans show?
It's December 27th. Yeah, headlining at Tibatina's at Zugma support right before New Year's Eve.
And as far as additional help that the band may need for any of the shows or studio work within the city, is there a certain skill set that you'd be looking for someone to come on and help you guys with any of the work that you do?
You know, we had talked about trying to bring someone else on. Just, you know, there's a lot of very tedious stuff. I mean, I don't only manage Earphunk, I have another gig as well. So I mean, you know, just tedious stuff. It's like, we were even talking about on the way here, the guys have their first ever press photo that they had from like, you know, 2008, taken at City Park, all have short hair, wearing tie-dyes. And somehow we've managed to delete it from everywhere, but somehow like buyers keep coming, like it just keeps popping up.
I show up to a venue and they have this picture up outside, and we're like, oh,
Yeah.
And there's just, you know, you just can't delete
Where did you
something
get
from
this?
that. So I mean, you know, we talked about bringing someone on board just to kind of help go through every venue website, make sure, you know, things are built correctly, it's the proper photo and stuff, but, you know, it's something that's been talked about, we just haven't quite moved on.
So as far as asking or looking for additional help, you feel like someone with a strong web presence? Sort of
Yeah, I mean, someone with a strong web presence, it's like, you know, very organized.
With the other acts that you manage, are you looking for any additional help?
Oh, well, this is actually, Earphunk's the only act that I'm managing currently.
Okay.
My focus is on this and the talent buying side of things.
Are there any other questions that anyone has for Alex or Earphunk?
I had a question. You said that you give everything you have away, you give everything as a free download?
Yeah, all of our
How do
recorded
you
music.
sell the product on that?
We sell
Physical
hard
copies of the CDs. We just put it in a vinyl order. We kind of did a pre-order, and people have already paid ahead of time, so that's almost raising some of the money to cover the cost of making the vinyl.
Do you find that giving everything away builds your fan base, or do you find it cuts into your CD? Do you have any perspective on that?
I mean,
how valuable that is for any band?
I kind of feel like the people who are going to buy CDs are going to buy it because they want it as they want a tangible item, you know. And then I feel like the people who want to listen to it, they'll probably find their buddy and drag it off of their hard drive.
Yeah,
you know?
and
So I feel like there's still a good amount of people out there who want a physical product, and they're going to buy it regardless. So our goal is to kind of just get our music out to as many people as possible.
And with the merch, are you sticking to T-shirts and CDs mostly, or vinyl?
Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember we still have money coming in from iTunes, but it's still a small percentage, of our income. And I remember the first day our album went on iTunes, I have a Google alert thing set up to anything with Earphunk in it. I get an email and it sends you a link and everything. And I think 2 hours later, I had 3 different emails for torrent downloading websites with the new album on it. Had already been legally downloaded and shared, and so it's like rather.
It's almost an honor.
It's
someone.
I mean,
pirate.
they're gonna pirate your music anyway. I'd rather focus more on touring and doing the gigs, the live show. And having the CD is just kind of getting your music out there to get the people to come to your live shows. Because, I mean, the fact of the matter is people just don't buy CDs. I don't know. People aren't buying music.
No, I mean, the business has shifted so much in the past, let's say 5 to 10 years to where, more and more of the pot, if you will, is being made off of touring revenue versus CD sales and whatnot.
Yeah, we've just found that to work out the best for us, for our situation. I mean, there's tons of industries where, I think I was reading some article the other day, country music, they still sell CDs for country bands, sell CDs for $19.99, and people will pay that,
And Drake just sold 1 million albums, people, it's not that, artists can't sell CDs, it's just, there's, what was the statistic I just read? I believe it was 90% or something like that of bands or albums that are for sale on iTunes don't break 100 sales.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was the exact number, but I read a statistic of something of that nature. But
overwhelming majority.
Yeah, an overwhelming majority of things listed on iTunes don't even have 100 sold. So I mean, there's definitely like a divide from people who are still selling records versus people trying to come up.
Alex, as far as your role with the company you work with sort of talent buying, are there certain types of EPKs or certain sets of information that you're always looking for when an act is trying to approach you?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a case-by-case basis. I mean, I'd say more than half of the stuff is coming from agents that, I have previous relationships with who we've done business. And, you're essentially, to get bigger shows, hey, you're going to help me develop this band, I'll give you this. It's kind of, there's a lot of politics involved at that level. But, there's definitely been situations where, someone sends me a link and I'll listen to it, I'm like, wow, this is really good, we should put them in front of a crowd. I just had Arctic Monkeys in Baton Rouge on October 5th. The show sold out like 7 weeks in advance, and a local band, in the EPK, they'd done a couple shows. I wasn't able to check them out because I live down here. But got their new album to me, checked it out. I was like, wow, this is really good. So I mean, we put them in front of 800 people. People loved it, and their next show they did like 300 paid, which before that they were doing 50 to 60. So it's
What about that freestyling on your voicemail?
Yeah, oh yeah. Before I was working my job at Hookah's, when I was still just exclusively doing Earphunk in the Varsity in Baton Rouge, a rapper actually left me a freestyle on my voicemail, which is pretty hilarious. Definitely random.
Did he get the gig?
No, he did not get called back.
Yeah, with, I guess, trying to speak to some of the crowd members, if they're in bands that are trying to approach someone that purchases talent for a venue, would you rather receive like an EPK or just like a link into?
I would say definitely like, try and keep it as short and sweet as possible. Half the day we're on our phones or doing email. So as much information as you can condense into a small space and try and get your point across, it definitely helps. But, no one's going to spend, 5 minutes reading a 10-page EPK.
Click on a YouTube link or something.
Yeah, a couple YouTube links.
Everything's right there in the video.
I would say as short and sweet as possible.
Would you guys ever be interested in having students film a music video or come out to record a show?
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's it for my questions. If there's any other questions that students have.
Hey, what's going on? So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your marketing strategies, especially when you were talking about how you had a crowd of 180 in Portland when you guys had never toured on the West Coast before. What are some ways that you push your music out there and kind of make a name for yourself on a national scale?
In this day and age, it's the digital marketing tools that everyone has available are just incredible. As far as you can reach, people anywhere. Looking at their Facebook analytics, there's over 1,000 people not in America that somehow have heard about the band. There's really cool stuff you can do nowadays. You can do targeted ads like via YouTube, where basically, say we want to target fans of Galactic in Portland. Any person who looks up a Galactic video in Portland, you can target it to where that 15-second ad that you have to watch on YouTube, that's going to be about Earphunk. You can also do Google ads where, anyone who lives in Portland who's searching for a Galactic Dumpster Funk, whatever, they're going to have to see your ad on Google. Obviously, we do some Facebook advertising, which is geo-targeted, which really helps. It's just, there's so many different tools that are available nowadays. We pretty much rely mostly on digital.
Can I just ask one more question? How do you budget your, what percentage would you use for marketing? Because I'm sure that those ads cost some money, to... Yeah, it's just a case-by-case basis. It kind of depends on, what the guarantees are, and looking at it from that perspective of, hey, okay, we're getting $1,000 for this gig, let's spend $100 on marketing and try and, make that back with sales being bought at the door. It's kind of a case-by-case basis, I would say.
Yeah. I think some need a little more push than others.
Yeah.
You can gauge that by pre-sales. You can gauge that by, a Facebook reaction or, those kind of things.
We also try to set up like local interviews on radio stations, college radio stations, whatever kind of, people might hit us up from the local newspaper or magazine and want to do a story on us about the show coming up this weekend. Sometimes they'll contact us, and then sometimes we'll have to go out and kind of seek them out. Just ask them to...
that's usually a sign of like a good promoter if you can say, hey, can you send me your media list, and they send you, a list of 10 email addresses and the right blogs you want to reach out to, versus like, oh, I don't really know. That's usually a sign of what did we just get ourselves into.
Yeah.
Is it possible for us to hear some of your music right now, or no?
Yeah, we actually had a
I think we have
video
a video
queued
queued
up that we could play, I guess, right after questions. Any more?
After questions. Anybody else?
Do you want to wrap up the questions and then we can just do the video? And
Anyone?
is that cool? Yeah, that's cool. Was that new master something?
Yeah. That was the first place. That's all I do. Too cool.